Rhett Harlow hadn't planned on sitting on a bench outside a downtown food truck with a lukewarm grilled cheese and a juice box his daughter didn't finish, but plans weren't really something he got to make anymore. "Is this seat taken?" a gentle voice asked. He looked up from his half-eaten sandwich. A woman in a neatly pressed white blouse and black slacks stood there, clutching a salad container like she wasn't sure whether to eat it or throw it away. Rhett nodded at the empty space next to him. "It's public property." She let out a soft laugh and sat, crossing her legs carefully. Her heels didn't belong on cracked pavement. "Thanks, everywhere else is packed." "Lunchtime rush," he muttered, taking another bite. She unwrapped her salad in silence, then glanced sideways. "You don't seem thrilled to be eating." "I'm not," Rhett said honestly. But it was either this or skip lunch again. The woman hesitated, then smiled faintly. "I'm Elise Everleigh." He wiped his hand on a napkin and offered it. Rhett Harlow." Her handshake was delicate but firm. "Nice to meet you," a beat passed. She looked like she belonged in a high-rise boardroom, not sitting on a bench beside a man whose jeans had a rip in the knee and who smelled faintly of peanut butter and kids' shampoo. "You work nearby?" she asked. "No," Rhett said. "I was just dropping my daughter at preschool. Figured I'd grab something cheap before heading to my shift." "What do you do?" "Warehouse work, nights." He took a swig of the juice box with a shrug. "Not glamorous, but it pays enough to keep a roof over our heads." Elise studied him quietly. "How old's your daughter?" "4, her name's Riley. She's got this obsession with dinosaurs and thinks peanut butter is a food group." Elise's lips curved at the edges. "Your kid?" Rhett asked, nodding at her untouched salad. She blinked. "Oh, no, I don't have any." "Husband?" "No." "Boyfriend?" She shook her head. "Not in a long time." He raised an eyebrow. "You're dressed like someone important. I figured you'd have a line of guys waiting." Elise laughed softly. "You'd be surprised. It's hard to find someone genuine when you don't know if they like you or your bank account." Rhett picked at his sandwich. "Well, I've got about $22 in my checking account, if that helps." That made her really laugh this time, and it surprised her how good it felt. They sat like that, two strangers from opposite worlds, sharing a meal that neither of them really wanted, but somehow it felt like the best part of their day. When she stood to leave, she hesitated. "Do you come here often?" Rhett shrugged. "Couple times a week, if I've got the time." She nodded slowly. "Maybe I'll see you around." He watched her walk away, heels clicking against the pavement, her hair catching the sunlight like it belonged in a magazine. He didn't know her last name. He didn't know she owned the building that towered over the food truck. He didn't know she'd just left a meeting where her legal team debated a multi-million-dollar merger. He just knew she was kind, and that her laugh made something ache in his chest in a way he hadn't felt in years. Elise didn't know what made her come back 2 days later. She told herself it was the food truck, maybe the salad hadn't been as bland as she thought. But when she saw him again, sitting on the same bench, this time with a chicken wrap and a slightly less tired look in his eyes, she knew it wasn't the food. "You're back," he said, surprised. "I was hungry," she replied, sitting beside him again. "You always eat alone." "Yeah. I guess I got used to it." He watched her for a moment. "That's a shame." They ate in silence for a bit, then she asked, "What's your daughter like?" Rhett's whole face lit up. "Riley, she's something else, got more energy than 10 adults. Last night she put her socks on her hands and told me she was a sock monster, wouldn't take them off until bedtime." Elise smiled, imagining it. "You talk about her like she's your whole world." "She is," Rhett said without hesitation. "She's what keeps me going." Something about the way he said it made her chest tighten. No one had ever looked at her the way Rhett talked about his daughter, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like Elise Everleigh, CEO of Everleigh Enterprises. She felt like a woman who wanted to be seen, wanted to be known. Over the next week, lunch became a routine. Rhett always brought leftovers or cheap takeout. Elise kept pretending she didn't have anything better to do. They laughed more, talked more. He teased her for not knowing how to fold a grilled cheese. She teased him for not knowing what quinoa was. One day, he showed her a picture of Riley holding a drawing of what looked like a purple hippo with wings. "She says it's me," Rhett said, shaking his head. "Apparently, I'm a flying dad hippo." Elise laughed so hard she snorted, and Rhett looked at her like she was the only woman in the world, and she felt it. She felt seen, wanted, not for her money, not for her name, just her. One rainy Friday, Elise surprised him by showing up with 2 hot coffees and a paper bag of warm sandwiches. "Figured I'd return the favor," she said shyly. He took the sandwich, eyebrows raised. "This from that cafe across the street. That place is fancy." "I have a monthly tab there," she said carefully, not meeting his eyes. Rhett chuckled. "Well, thanks. This is definitely better than the gas station burrito I was eyeing." "Rhett." She paused, then looked at him. "Why haven't you ever asked what I do?" He blinked. "I figured if you wanted to tell me, you would." She was quiet for a second, lips parting, but then she shook her head. "Maybe later," he nodded. "Whenever you're ready, no pressure, no expectations." That night, Elise sat in her penthouse suite, overlooking the skyline, untouched wine in her hand, and realized she was falling for him, hard, not because he had money, but because he didn't care who she was, he only cared how she felt. And for the first time in years, Elise Everleigh felt warm. "You're early," Rhett said as Elise approached the bench, holding 2 pastries in a white paper bag and a coffee carrier balanced in one hand. "Late meeting got cancelled," she replied, handing him a cup. "Cinnamon latte." "The barista said it's their best seller." "You remembered I said I liked cinnamon?" he asked, eyebrows lifting slightly as he took the cup from her. "I remember things that matter," she said simply, sitting beside him. Rhett looked down at the coffee, then back up at her. "What else do you remember?" She glanced at him, amused. "You hate mustard. You're allergic to shellfish. And your daughter tried to convince you last week that bedtime is for non-dinosaur people." He let out a soft laugh and shook his head. "She's relentless." Tried to negotiate a bedtime extension treaty with crayons and a juice box as collateral. Elise leaned back on the bench, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Sounds like she'd make a better CEO than half the people I've met." Rhett tilted his head. "You work in management." "I own a few things," she said vaguely, her tone casual, but her fingers tightened slightly around her coffee cup. He didn't push. He never did. Instead, he pointed to the pastry bag. "What's in there?" "Please tell me it's not quinoa wrapped in disappointment." She grinned. "Pumpkin muffins. I figured we deserved something that doesn't taste like cardboard." He opened the bag and took one, raising an eyebrow as he broke it in half. "You're spoiling me." "You deserve it," she said quickly, too quickly. He looked at her, and for a moment something unspoken hovered between them. But then she cleared her throat and changed the subject. "Riley has school today." "Yeah, they're doing a career day thing." I had to explain to her that being a warehouse loader isn't the same as being a superhero, but she told her teacher I lift heavy things to protect the city. Elise laughed, but her expression softened. "She sounds like she's proud of you," Rhett shrugged. "I do what I can." "It's not glamorous, but she's fed." "That's the job, right?" Elise's voice dropped slightly. "You make it sound simple." Rhett didn't look at her. "It has to be. If I start thinking about how hard it is, I won't be able to do it." A silence fell between them, heavier now. Elise watched the steam rise from her coffee, her thoughts distant. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. "My father used to say that. He built his first company from nothing. Worked out of his garage with 2 employees and a stack of rejection letters." Rhett glanced at her. "What happened to him?" "He died 6 years ago. Heart failure. He worked himself into the ground." "I'm sorry." She nodded once, then took another sip. "I took over after he passed. Everyone expected me to sell it off or find someone else to run it. I didn't." Rhett leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "So you're the boss." "I'm a boss," she said carefully, eyes flicking to his face. "Not exactly the 9-to-5 type." He studied her for a long moment. "You don't talk about it much. I'm used to people treating me differently once they find out. I haven't treated you like anything. That's why I haven't told you more." She didn't say it with bitterness, just quiet truth. Rhett nodded slowly. "Okay," Elise blinked, surprised. "That's it. You'll tell me when you're ready." He stood up, stretching slightly. "You always bring pastries when you're nervous." She stood too, brushing crumbs from her slacks. "Maybe." "You always deflect with humor when something gets serious." "Maybe." They smiled at each other, and for a moment the noise of traffic and chatter faded into the background. It was just them, standing too close, saying nothing they wanted to say. "Would you ever?" She started, then stopped herself. What? She hesitated, then shook her head. Never mind, Elise, she looked up at him. You can ask me anything. She held his gaze. Would you ever consider doing something else? Besides the warehouse, I mean. He didn't answer right away. I used to want to be a mechanic, had a thing for classic cars, but then life happened. Bills, diapers, you stop dreaming when the rent's due. Elise's chest ached at the quiet in his voice. Maybe you could still do it. I don't have time for maybe, he said, soft but firm. Neither of them spoke after that. A few minutes later, Elise glanced at her watch. I have to head back. Big meeting? Something like that. He nodded, stepping aside so she could pass. See you tomorrow, she asked. Yeah, he said. Same bench. She walked away, heels tapping against the sidewalk, but this time her steps slowed at the corner. She turned once. He was still watching her. Back in her office, Elise stared at the meeting agenda on her desk. Words blurred, her assistant knocked. They're ready for you in the conference room. Tell them I'll be 10 minutes. Should I reschedule? No, she said. Just stall. She picked up her phone, not to call anyone, but to open a photo she'd taken earlier of Rhett laughing, holding a pumpkin muffin like it was a treasure. She wasn't used to wanting things she couldn't control, but she wanted this. And she couldn't shake the feeling that if she waited too long, she might lose him, not because of who she was, but because of what she hadn't said yet. Rhett didn't expect to see Elise again until their usual lunch spot the next day, but when he stepped out of the preschool after dropping Riley off, there she was leaning against a black SUV parked across the street, arms folded, sunglasses hiding her expression. You stalking me now? He joked as he walked over, adjusting the strap of Riley's dinosaur backpack slung over his shoulder. I had an early morning and didn't feel like waiting around until noon, she said, sliding the sunglasses to the top of her head. Figured I'd see if you were free for breakfast, he blinked. I mean, yeah, sure, but I've got an hour before heading to the warehouse. I'll have you back in 30 minutes, she said, already opening the passenger door. He hesitated. This your car? It's the company driver's. I asked him to take the morning off. Rhett climbed in slowly, glancing around the polished black interior. This thing probably costs more than my entire apartment. Probably, she replied, pulling away from the curb like it was nothing. They drove in silence for a few blocks, the city waking up around them in fits of honking horns and street vendors setting up carts. Eventually, Elise turned down a narrow street lined with restored brownstones and parked in front of a cafe with ivy curling up its whitewashed brick exterior. This place looks like it charges extra just for breathing, Rhett muttered as she stepped out. They do, Elise said, holding the door open for him. But they also make croissants that taste like heaven. Inside, the cafe was peaceful muted jazz playing overhead, the scent of fresh pastries and espresso filling the air. A hostess greeted them by name, and Elise nodded toward a quiet corner. You've been here before, Rhett said as they sat. Once or twice, she admitted, picking up the menu. You want sweet or savory? Sweet, he replied, still scanning the place. This is the nicest place I've ever worn flannel in, she laughed softly. I like the flannel, it suits you. He looked at her carefully. You're in a good mood. I am, she said, then paused. I've been thinking. That sounds dangerous. I'm serious, she said, lowering the menu. Have you ever wanted something completely out of reach? He leaned back in his chair. Every time I pass a hardware store with power tools I can't afford, she smiled again, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I mean something bigger, something that scares you a little. He tilted his head. What are you trying to say? She didn't answer right away. The waiter arrived with coffees and a basket of buttery pastries. Elise waited until he left before speaking again. I'm thinking of stepping away from my position, she said quietly, or at least taking a step back. Rhett raised his eyebrows. Why? Because half the time I'm making decisions that drain me, and the other half I'm pretending it doesn't matter. He looked at her for a long moment. So what would you do instead? I don't know yet, she admitted. But I know I don't want to keep living my life with every second scheduled and no room to breathe. And you think stepping away will fix that, I think. It'll give me space to find something real. Rhett's voice was low. Something, or someone. Elise didn't look away. Maybe both. The air shifted between them, the kind of silence that felt like the edge of something dangerous and beautiful. Rhett cleared his throat. This is the part where I should probably say something smart. Don't, she said. Just be honest. He stared down at the coffee in front of him. The truth, I've been trying not to want more than this. Why? Because I'm a single dad who works nights and eats expired cereal when Riley's not looking. You're wearing shoes that probably cost more than my car. Does that scare you? It doesn't scare me, he said. It makes me think I'm the wrong chapter in your life. Elise leaned forward. Who told you that? No one had to, he said. It's just how the world works. Then maybe the world needs a rewrite, she said softly. They sat in silence again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was thoughtful, like the moment before a decision that could change everything. Eventually, Rhett stood. I should get going. I'll drive you, he shook his head. I'll walk. It's only 10 minutes. She stood too, reaching into her coat pocket. Then take this. He looked down at the envelope she held out to him. What is it? Just open it later. He hesitated, then took it, slipping it into his jacket without a word. As he turned to leave, she said quietly, You're not the wrong chapter, Rhett. He glanced over his shoulder. You don't even know which one I am. I know enough to want to keep reading. He didn't say anything else, just walked out into the morning light, the envelope burning a hole in his pocket. Back at work, Rhett waited until his break to open it. Inside was a folded sheet with a business card clipped to the top. Below it, neat handwriting sprawled across the page. If you ever want to learn how to fix engines, I know someone who owes me a favor. There's a spot at a garage in Midtown. Paid apprenticeship. No strings attached. Just say the word. He stared at the card for a long time, the hum of the warehouse around him fading. She hadn't offered him a handout. She'd offered him a way forward, and that terrified him more than anything else. The call came on a Monday afternoon, just as Rhett was tying Riley's shoelaces before heading out for his shift. He nearly let it go to voicemail, unknown number, Midtown area code, but something stopped him. Hello, a man's voice answered. Rhett Harlow. This is Marcus Feld with Feld's Auto Restoration. Elise Everleigh said you might be interested in a position. Rhett straightened. She did. She said you've got a good head, strong work ethic, and more potential than most guys I've hired. I've got an opening for an apprentice. It's part-time to start, flexible hours. Pays better than warehouse work. You want to come in tomorrow morning? Yeah, Rhett said, almost too quickly. Yeah, I do. Good, 7 sharp, don't be late. After he hung up, he sat on the couch for a full minute, Riley tugging at his sleeve. Daddy, are we still going to Miss Tina's? Yeah, baby, he said, scooping her up. We're going, but Daddy might be getting a new job. Do they have snacks there? He grinned. I guess we'll find out. That night at work, Rhett moved boxes faster than he had in weeks. His coworkers cracked jokes about him drinking too much coffee, but what buzzed in his veins wasn't caffeine, it was possibility. Real, tangible change. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like life was just something to survive. The next morning, the garage smelled like oil and old leather. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but Marcus was already elbow-deep in the hood of a '68 Mustang. You know what this is? He asked, not looking up. '68 Mustang Fastback, Rhett answered. Original grill, Marcus grunted. At least you know what you're looking at. Let's see if you know how to use a wrench. By noon, Rhett's hands were black with grease and his arms ached in a way that felt good. Right. Like this was what his body had been built to do. Marcus didn't say much, but he didn't have to. Every time he handed Rhett a new task, it meant he trusted him to do it. When Rhett stepped out for lunch, Elise was leaning against the chain-link fence across the street, holding 2 sandwiches and a bottle of lemonade. You just happened to be nearby, he asked, walking over. I was in the neighborhood, she said, offering him one. He took it, then studied her. You didn't tell me you were setting this up. I didn't want you to feel like you had to say yes because of me. You're aware this is kind of a big deal, right? Elise looked down at her shoes. I hoped it would be. They sat on a low wall under the rusted sign of a laundromat next door, unwrapping their sandwiches in silence. This wasn't like their usual lunches. There was no banter, no jokes, just the weight of something unspoken pressing between them. Elise, he said finally, why are you doing this? She didn't look at him. Because I care, his voice lowered. About what, you, she said, meeting his eyes. And Riley, and the way you talk about fixing things like it's not just about machines. He swallowed. This is a lot, I know. I mean, I don't even know what your apartment looks like. You won't like it, she said. It's too white, too cold, it doesn't feel like anything. You live alone, she nodded. Always have. I live with a 4-year-old who thinks every surface is a canvas for crayon masterpieces. I think I'd like that more. They didn't eat for a while after that. Then Rhett said, I've had people try to fix things for me before. It never works out. I'm not trying to fix anything, she said. I just want to be part of it. He looked at her for a long time. You really want to be in this. I don't say things I don't mean. I can't give you a penthouse or a driver or whatever else you're used to. I don't want those things, she said. I want something that's real when I wake up, not a calendar full of meetings. Not a name on a plaque. And what about Riley? Elise smiled. You think I'd be doing any of this if I didn't care about her too? He let out a breath. You're really not going to run, are you? No, she said. But if you need time, I'll wait. I don't, Rhett said. I just needed to know it was real. Later that week, after Elise helped Riley pick out a birthday gift for one of her preschool friends, a stuffed stegosaurus with sparkly feet, Rhett invited her over for dinner. He made spaghetti. Burn the garlic bread. Riley insisted on setting the table, which meant forks in the wrong places and a napkin folded like a pirate hat. Elise didn't stop smiling the whole night. After Riley went to bed, Elise wandered to the bookshelf and pulled out an old photo of Rhett holding a baby swaddled in a pink blanket. That was the first night home from the hospital, he said quietly. I hadn't slept in 40 hours. You looked terrified. I was, she turned to face him, but you did it anyway. He stepped closer. I had to. No, she said, you chose to. That's what makes you different. He touched her hand. You sure you want this life? With me, she laced her fingers through his. I want you, all of it. Outside, the city moved on without them. Inside, the quiet was soft and steady. Weeks passed. Rhett split his time between the garage and Riley, who started calling Elise Lissy and insisted she come to her preschool art show. Elise, in turn, started leaving her office earlier and earlier until her assistant took her aside and asked if she was retiring. She wasn't. She was just living. One afternoon, Rhett picked up Elise from her building. She came out in jeans and a sweatshirt, her hair in a loose braid. Where are we going? She asked as she climbed into the cab of his truck. You'll see. They ended up at a small lot on the edge of the city where an old '72 Chevy Nova sat under a tarp, rusted and forgotten. I've been saving for it, Rhett said. It's not much yet, but it will be. She walked around it slowly, then looked up at him. What's it for? A future. He held out a key. Want to build it with me? She took the key without hesitation. Months later, the Nova gleamed under the sun at Riley's kindergarten graduation, parked beside Elise's modest new sedan. Elise had stepped back from her company, not entirely out, but enough to breathe. Enough to finally live. Rhett stood beside her as Riley ran up in her cap and gown, holding a paper diploma like it was gold. I did it, she shouted. You sure did, Rhett said, lifting her up. Elise kissed Riley's cheek. You're the smartest sock monster I know. Riley giggled and wrapped her arms around both of them. They weren't perfect, but they were together. And for all the things they didn't have, they had everything that mattered. The afternoon sun filtered through the living room window, casting a golden hue over the worn coffee table where Riley had spread out crayons and stickers in meticulous chaos. Elise sat cross-legged on the rug beside her, carefully placing a foil star on the corner of Riley's drawing. Rhett leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching the two of them with a quiet intensity. It had become a familiar scene. His daughter and the woman who had stepped into their lives without warning, without expectation, and now felt like she'd always belonged. Elise looked up at him. She says this one's for your toolbox. You're officially a certified art technician. Rhett walked over, crouched beside Riley, and studied the picture. It was a surprisingly accurate rendering of a car engine with hearts floating over the pistons. I'll frame it, he said. Put it above the workbench. Riley beamed and returned to her masterpiece. Rhett rose and touched Elise's elbow lightly. Can I talk to you for a second? She followed him into the kitchen, where the scent of lemon and rosemary lingered from the chicken she'd roasted the night before. He pulled out a small envelope from the drawer and handed it to her. She opened it slowly. Inside was a folded sheet of paper, an official registration form from the city, signed and stamped. Rhett's Restoration, she read aloud, eyes scanning the name of the new business. You filed it. I did, he said. Marcus said I'm ready. I've been working nights on the Nova and weekends at the garage. I saved enough to lease one of the bays behind his shop. It's small, but it's mine. She looked up at him, stunned. You never said anything. I wanted to make sure it was real before I told you. I didn't want it to be another maybe. I wanted to hand you something solid. He hesitated, then stepped closer, lowering his voice. You were the first person who ever believed I could do more than survive. I'm not handing this to you because I think I owe you. I'm telling you because I want you to be part of it. She reached up and touched his face gently, her fingers brushing his jaw. I'm already part of it. He kissed her then, slow and sure, like he knew exactly what he wanted and had no intention of letting it go. Later that night, after Riley was asleep and the house had settled into its usual nighttime quiet, Elise stood barefoot in front of the open fridge, debating over a slice of cheesecake Rhett had brought home. He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. Eat it, he murmured. You had a long day. She tilted her head toward him. You're the one who spent 3 hours replacing brake lines, and I'd do it again if it means coming home to you. She turned in his arms, smiling. You're getting good at this romance thing. He brushed his thumb along her cheek. I had an excellent teacher. Early summer crept in slowly, with longer evenings and the buzz of cicadas humming through the backyard. Riley took to chasing lightning bugs in the dusk, while Rhett worked on the Nova under the open hood, his radio playing low jazz through the open garage window. One warm Friday evening, Elise came outside holding a glass of iced tea and leaned against the doorframe, watching him. You know, she said, you still haven't taken me on a proper date. Rhett looked up from the engine, wiping his hands on a rag. Define proper. Something with candles, maybe dancing. Somewhere you don't smell like motor oil. He set the rag down and walked toward her, closing the distance between them in 3 slow steps. I'll take you to the fanciest place in town, he said. But I'm warning you, I only know how to dance slow. I'll risk it. That Saturday, he surprised her, not with a 5-star restaurant, but with a rooftop dinner above the garage, white tablecloth, string lights, and a playlist he made himself. Elise wore a soft green dress that caught the breeze and made his heart stumble in his chest. They danced under the stars, barefoot on the warm rooftop, arms wrapped around each other like the world had finally settled into place. I could get used to this, she whispered. You already have, he said. 3 months later, Elise sold her penthouse and moved into a quiet house on the edge of town, a 2-story fixer-upper with a sunroom and enough yard for Riley to build forts. They painted the walls together. Rhett taught Elise how to use a power drill, and Riley insisted her bedroom be dinosaur-themed, complete with glow in the dark stars on the ceiling. Elise never once looked back. Their days became a rhythm: school drop-offs, garage repairs, warm dinners, and backyard bonfires. Elise took on fewer board meetings and more consulting work, choosing clients she believed in. She no longer wore heels unless she wanted to. Rhett's garage grew steadily, and within a year he hired 2 apprentices and expanded to the second bay. One crisp autumn morning, Rhett pulled Elise aside before she left to pick up Riley. He held out a small velvet box. I didn't get down on one knee because I don't want this to be a performance, he said. I just want you to know this is where I want to be, with you, with Riley, every day. Elise opened the box slowly, revealing a simple gold band with a tiny emerald nestled in the center. She looked up at him, her voice low and full. I didn't think I could ever need someone, but I need you. Rhett took her hand. So is that a yes? She nodded, tears brimming. It's a forever. They married 1 year later in a quiet ceremony beneath a canopy of autumn leaves, surrounded by a small circle of friends, with Riley as the proudest flower girl in history. There was no grand ballroom or orchestra. Just love and laughter and a promise that felt more solid than anything money could buy. They danced barefoot again, this time on the grass, Elise's dress floating around her knees, Rhett's hand steady at her back. You're not the wrong chapter, she whispered. He pressed his forehead to hers. "You're the whole damn book." And in the warmth of that moment, surrounded by everything they'd built from scratch, they knew this was exactly where they were meant to be. Always.